You are now tuned in to Go Time Dolphins with Charlie Touche and Kadeem Simmons, the Miami Dolphins podcast that's for the fans and by the fans.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's show time. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's show time. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time.
Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome everyone to another episode of Go Time Dolphins. If you are watching on YouTube, you will notice straight away that I am not joined by Charlie Touche. I'm joined by 5YardLee of the DolFan UK podcast. And because of that, I will not be doing my new intro that I debuted last episode. Instead, I will just ask Lee how he is. Lee, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Watching some anime before we jumped on a bit of Dan. Still yet to start the new Dexter, but I will start that very soon. How was the first episode?
I was surprised that I was impressed with the first one. I was worried about the concept. I told you this when it was announced. We discussed it, didn't we? But I was very nervous about the concept because I loved the original show. But yeah, I was impressed. The second episode came out today, I think, so I haven't watched it yet though.
Yeah, that might be like a Christmas time, some point over Christmas. I'll watch it. See if Hannah Montana wants to watch it with me. But yeah, last time you were on was you like every week, aren't you? So last time you were on, we played the New York Jets, and we scraped a win against the New York Jets, which we thought would be the momentum we needed. You know, they've got the Texans, we'll beat the Texans, and we didn't beat the Texans, and now we've got the 49ers. First things first, are you in tank mode? Give it up. Like, the playoff chances are slim, so you might as well just focus on the draft, or are you still, as long as it's mathematically possible, we need to win, we need to do everything we can to make the postseason?
I'm still on the win train. I'm more of a half glass full kind of guy. I would say. It's funny. I put in our group the other day, actually this morning, I think it was. For so many people, the season's over, and yeah, it probably is. But not many people have moved on to their draft content yet. So do they really believe it's over?
When you say not many people, which people are you talking about?
Anyone, any of the fans. Have you taken your attention away from looking at this week's game and moving on to college prospects? Because that's to me, when the season's over, that's where my focus shifts, is to looking at that. Obviously, I'm still watching the games, taking all the news, but I'm heavily watching draft tape because I've moved on to that phase of the off season, and I just choose not to do that until I have to. The season's short enough as it is without me artificially shortening it.
Yeah, I saw someone post that. I think it was today as well. It's like the season compared to the off season, like it's night and day. The season goes by so quickly. You then have basically like 8 months of just no football, wishing away games, wishing away. I can't wait for the off season. Why? Because when the off season does get here, you'll be like, "Oh, I want the season back" and stuff like that. So no,
we'll get there soon enough.
Yeah, you and I are the same. While there's still a chance, I'm going. You have to go out there and win. Like, you have to. And even when there is no chance, hey, go out there and win, because it's not like where you say the Dolphins get the 18th overall pick. You can trade up or you can trade down. So it's not like you are locked into that position. Yes, you might want a higher pick. You can do X, Y, and Z, but people talk about wanting someone from the Steelers or the Chiefs or whatever. These guys tend to pick in the 20s every single year. And these guys tend to do a really good job of picking up talent. Hey, the Steelers were picking like 1 or 2 spots behind or ahead of us last year, and they basically picked the draft that I wanted. So, listen, it's not draft talk, but I just thought I'd just get your opinion on that. Same way I would get your opinion on the 49ers. So, obviously, there's no Charlie, so there's no huddle today. But just before we went to record, the injury report came out, and Blake Ferguson is out. He's done for the season, isn't he? Whatever issue he's got, he's done for the season. D. Eskridge and Jaylen Waddle are doubtful. But the interesting thing was that Tyreek Hill was added to the injury report as questionable. It seems this wrist injury is still causing him issues. So, what do you think the likelihood of having no Hill and no Waddle when you play the 49ers on Sunday?
I mean, there's a way to end your season real quick. But it seemed a weird one. The last interception Tua threw last week, right? Tyreek has his hands on the ball, and we've seen him go up and get the ball over defenders before. That's it's not like it's not in his wheelhouse to do that. We've seen him do it. Like, I think especially in that first year he played with Tua when he went up over Patriots defensive back, snatched up a ball that looked like a sure interception, but it seemed weirdly easy for Stingley to snatch it away from Tyreek. And don't get me wrong, it was a good play by the defender as well. Absolutely. But it did seem a little bit out of character. We know that he mentioned a few times this season that it's been causing him a problem. So, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. I was just looking, Tom Pelissero reported it as wrist/personal. So, I have to think that Tyreek will go. It's not the first time he's popped up on the injury report late. Generally tends to play. Look, your season's pretty much done. I'm sure there's a mathematical way you can lose this week and still have a chance, but this really is it. Do you know what I mean? You have no choice but to win this game. So if you've got it in you, this is the time to do it. Teron Armstead said that he liked his chances of playing. Like, I think that tells you everything you need to know, as in, the value of this game. So there's no resting for next week, because if it's not this week, it's probably not this season. So,
yeah, this is the first must-win game. This, to me, is what I define as a must-win game, which is if you lose, you're out. Even if, like, mathematically there's like a 0.5% chance, I think no. The Dolphins lose today, that's their season finished, or lose on Sunday. Sorry, that is their season finished. And it's interesting because we spoke so much before about can you beat good teams, all that kind of stuff. And you are facing a 49ers team at home, which is, what's their record this year?
Not a winning team.
They are 6-8.
The bottom of the division.
So this is a home game. We're at home, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a home game against a team with a losing record. Surely this has win written all over it.
Should be right in their wheelhouse.
Yeah, like, again, the Houston game, you're on the road against a winning team in a stadium which you've never won before. But this is at home against a team which, listen, if there's any defense that can match up against the Dolphins offense, I'm not a believer in the NFL has figured out Mike McDaniel's offense. We're like weeks away from just beating the Rams. They couldn't stop us. So I'm not into all of that nonsense. But the 49ers and their linebackers, especially Fred Warner, have an amazing ability of taking away the middle of the field. And if Tua wants to, try and test those intermediate routes down the middle of the field, he will see Fred Warner standing there over and over again. So the matchup will be very, very interesting, in my opinion, especially, our offense against their defense. The flip side is they basically have no running backs. They're down to like their fifth running back. He's probably going to go for 100 yards, but they're down to their fifth running back. So,
did I see a weird stat that the Dolphins haven't given up 100-yard rusher or something earlier? I saw a really weird stat I couldn't believe was true. I didn't have a chance to fact check it yet.
I think I've seen that stat as well. It's like the Dolphins haven't had or given up a 100-yard rusher this season.
Yeah, they're like one of three teams are saying to do it. It's crazy stat.
I can have a look at their games, and it's not too hard to discern. So let's go to this season.
But whilst you're doing that, let me pose another question to you, because we just mentioned that it was kind of in their wheelhouse to win a game against a team with a losing record in Miami. How do you feel about it being a matchup of Mike McDaniel against a coach he knows? He's lost to LaFleur. He's lost to LaFleur twice in the last couple of years. Beat McVay. Lost to the Texans last week under D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of somebody else. Obviously was able... See, it's funny because D'Amico Ryan seemed to have an answer for everything on defense. Robert Saleh didn't as a head coach. Both defensive coordinators previously with... defensive guys from San Francisco. Went on the road and beat the Rams against a guy who obviously comes, with a similar offensive mindset, and then goes and loses to LaFleur twice. So, is there something in that?
I personally don't think there's. I think it's a massive, massive coincidence. I think that again, if you're playing an offense or defense, which you kind of know like the back of your hand, you kind of know how to stop it without really having to do too much. But then you kind of also know the strengths, so the weaknesses of it as well. So no, I think it's more. Listen, we go back to talking about cold weather games and stuff like that. I think once again it comes down to, the 49ers Kyle Shanahan coaching tree has branched so far and wide that a few are that good teams, which is why the Dolphins have been able to beat them. Because I saw something. Also, I'm at the Titans game and the Dolphins haven't given up or had a 100-yard rusher. The most I've seen so far is A. Chandler for 98 1 week. There's a few 80s. So yeah, the Colts game, nope and nope. The Cardinals might be the only one where I think there might have been. Nope, because A-Chan went for 97 and James Conner went for 53. So yeah, the Dolphins haven't given up a 100-yard rusher so far this season.
So it's an interesting one, isn't it? I'm not sure.
But then it goes back to just how bad is this defense? Like, people are saying, no, Weaver's got to go, all this kind of stuff. But I feel like the Dolphins' issue at the moment is that they don't play complementary football across all three phases. One unit turns up, another one doesn't. This unit can't tackle, but this unit is pretty good at stopping the run. So, again, this is a unit with injuries, a unit which is in its first season as, in this scheme and stuff like that. But when you look at the stats, and again, stats aren't everything, but when you look at the stats, this is a well-performing unit which has been let down by several different factors so far this season.
I think the thing that bugs me, and I mentioned this to you last week because it kind of happened again, is how many times do you see a number one wide receiver from your position being covered by a linebacker in the red zone?
Yeah.
We seem to be able to find no way to have their best guy against our best guy. It doesn't happen. Do you know what I mean? There's always an example of someone running free in the end zone and they're being trailed by a linebacker. And it's like, that's frustrating. And that bugs me. And I'm like, I kind of want to be angry about it. But then you start looking into the stats and you think, this defense is actually playing pretty well. But then they seem to give up. It seems to have been a number of weeks since they have looked as good as they did early in the season. And I know there's a lack of pass rush a little bit. Chop Robinson's obviously playing really well and is coming along great. But, they're obviously missing something without Jalen Phillips opposite him.
I was going to say, I do think, especially when you get down to the red zone, and it might be a case of at first we have like Jalen Ramsey on their best wide receiver and stuff like that. To the one last week where it's Ramsey clearly on their wide receiver, who then passed him on to Jordan Poyer. Poyer is still with Aaron Rodgers at that retreat and stuff like that. But I also think because the Dolphins don't get pressure instantly, it allowed the quarterback to kind of have those extra 3 seconds or extra few seconds. And as we know, it could happen to us as well. You can't cover someone for 5 seconds. They will at some point get free. So it isn't an issue, but I also think it's a case of that lack of pass rush when it really matters. It's 3rd and goal or 2nd and goal. Let's try and get them. And again, because we can't tackle as well, it's like, hey, we got to the quarterback. Oh, look, he's made someone miss. And because he's made someone miss, then another defender's had to come across. And at that point, someone's wide open in the end zone. Compared to us, it's one, we're going to go for a stupid fade to Tyreek Hill. Stop doing that. But also, because that pressure's so instant and getting to Tua, we don't quite have the time to really time to get anyone open, if that makes sense. But it's
I thought last week's struggle was much different than struggles we've seen in the past from this offense on the road against winning teams.
Yeah,
I think that it's easy to point at 2 replacement tackles, and I know they didn't play badly at all, but there was also a bunch of times where it was very clear the changes in personnel were causing a problem. In the run game, you would suddenly have 3 linemen blocking 2 defensive linemen, and then looking at each other after the play like, why are we all standing next to each other? Do you know what I mean? It looked discombobulated compared to when this team was run the ball well. It looks far more fluid and like there is a plan. And okay, that definitely might be down to the defensive scheme, and they've got them off their game. But there's also, he's done it again. A good chance. Sorry, I've got darts on in the background. He managed to throw one dart into the other again. But it seemed to happen too many times at the weekend, and that was causing real problems for the run game. And that's how you end up abandoning the run game and becoming a pass-only team, which, that's going to help any defense if they know what you're doing.
I think what's interesting as well is that Mike McDaniel said that as Hannah Montana come back from Christmas party, like I'm not podcasting, is Mike McDaniel spoke about, it was a lot of misassignments and stuff like that, and kind of alluded to you might see a change on the line, which probably going to be Isaiah Wynn coming in for someone. Now, a lot of people have been like, why didn't this happen sooner? All of this kind of stuff. Do you think we see someone benched? And is it likely to be Liam Eichenberg, the one to be benched, or will it be Robert Jones? It doesn't even matter.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, your question is really, what's the upgrade difference between Jones and Wynn and Eichenberg and Wynn? Do you know what I mean? It's obviously a marginal game, but look, this is your final throw of the dice. You've got to get it right, and you can't afford to see 2 with no time and wide receivers with no time to get open. That's not going to happen. It's not going to work for you this week.
What you could see, I'm surprised they didn't do it last week, but I can understand why they didn't do it, which is you move Eichenberg to right tackle and have Wynn at guard. But I can also see it going, he's played guard, Eichenberg's been there all season. We don't need to change it. So who knows? I think it'll be interesting.
For the first time ever, he's played one position for the majority of the year.
Yeah.
And has it all been sunshine and rainbows? Absolutely not. Has it been as bad as his other seasons? Certainly not. It has definitely been better.
Yeah, I feel like we've had this conversation before. People talk about Eichenberg being bad. It's like, well, no, there's always one play where unfortunately he is, on the floor. And that's the one that gets highlighted. It's like, if you're only finding one play where your offensive lineman is on the ground, you know what? No offense, I'll take it. Maybe that's just me setting my standards low. But again, if you stop watching Red Zone and watch other games, you'll see linemen on the floor over and over again because no one's perfect. And they're up against guys who are actually trying to get to your quarterback. So who knows? Who knows? What we do know is that the Dolphins have to beat the 49ers on Sunday. Do you reckon we see Jaylen Waddle? I know we spoke about Hill earlier, but do you reckon Waddle plays?
No.
Interesting. How comes?
I think he has a deeper injury history. And when he gets hurt like this, he generally does miss the game coming up. Whereas when Tyreek ends up on the injury report, more often than not, he plays. I know there was a couple of games back in the last year when after he suffered that hip drop tackle on the sideline, he missed. Was it just a one game? He might have just missed one game.
I think so.
But do you know what I mean? But usually he plays. When Jaylen Waddle pops up on the injury report with something like this, something that had sidelined him the game before. You got to remember, he missed the entire 2/3 of the game. Sorry,
yeah,
final 3 quarters of the game.
Yeah, he didn't come back in. The thing is, it looked like he was going. It looked like at any moment he could,
No.
but he wasn't going to. Like he wasn't sat down in a hoodie.
Do you know why he wasn't going to? Because he didn't have his gloves on.
That as well, yeah.
Because the commentator kept saying, he's standing on the sideline and he's got his helmet, but his gloves were in his hand. It's like, you don't see that from him. If he doesn't take his gloves off his hands in Miami, where it's hot, he's not doing it in a dome. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he was ever coming back in.
No. Who knows?
I mean, he may have, he may have just had it there in case for some reason they needed him to stand on the field because obviously the Bows had already gone down. They were short of wide receivers anyway. So if they needed a body for some reason to make up the correct number, like he might have stood out there. I don't think he was ever going to seriously go back in the game, though.
Yeah. Speaking about Grant Bows, I believe he's back home now. I know last thing I definitely remember, and I'm looking at it now, is he stayed at, what was it? He had movement in all his extremities, and initial tests had revealed positive results. I think he was still in hospital on Wednesday. But yeah, he's recovering, which is the main thing. So obviously I'm sure we all wish him a very speedy, full and healthy recovery. I guess look at the other side of the ball then. Is this the week we see Cameron Good and friend of the podcast, Bradley Chubb, return to the field?
I mean, I hope so. Final roll of the dice. I don't think there's anything left. Like, if it's not going to be detrimental to them to be available, then I think you have to, and that is especially in Bradley Chubb's case. Like, and it's not, that's no slight against Cameron Good, but he's a very different prospect as a player, isn't he, than Bradley Chubb?
Yeah.
And I hope Good comes in and can make an impact. That would be great.
Yeah.
But, Bradley Chubb is the sort of player that is going to get the attention of any opposing team coming to play the Dolphins. So if there is a chance he can provide anything, again, if he doesn't this week, that might be him done for the season. Because you may not have the need to bring him back. No,
I think Coach said that Cameron Good is the likely of the two. He seems like he's a step ahead of Bradley Chubb. But yeah, I think Anthony Weaver was speaking earlier this week and saying, he's looking forward to having Chubb, Phillips, and Chop Robinson on the field in that rotation. And I think he's talking about next season and stuff like that. He spoke about what it could do for the defense and stuff. But I also think one, it will come down to money, and two, if we don't win on Sunday, then I can imagine just go, hey Chubb, we're just gonna sit you down. Like the 2 games, we're gonna see what we've got in Quinton Bell. I reckon they'll activate Good and say, hey, let's see what we see in you and stuff like that.
Yeah, different stage of his career. It's a different proposition. But when you've got the sort of money you've got invested in Chubb, like everyone was upset that he was playing at a meaningless point in a game where your season was still very much active. I'm not sure playing in games when your season is actually done. It is the sort of fate you want to be tempting 2 years in a row.
No, I agree. Before I ask you this question, I normally ask this at the beginning, but I didn't because just so you're here all the time. So, but yeah, where can people find you if people are tuning in to Go Time Dolphins for the first time?
Here on Go Time Dolphins. You can find me at 5YardLee on X and the DolFan UK podcast, which is part of the Dolphins network. So you can find it on their website, any of the podcast platforms. But yeah, that's it.
Lee is like the most understated person. He refuses to highlight just how amazing a person he is. If you are watching on YouTube, the layout, this is Lee. Like, this is Lee's creation. Stuff like this as well. See if this works. Yeah, stuff like that. That is Lee's creation. So much stuff here is Lee. So, as always, we are extremely grateful to have you here. Charlie will be back next week. We aren't going anywhere just yet. We haven't even done our score predictions. Lee, Dolphins 49ers, 9:25 on Sunday in the UK. That's what, a 4:25 kickoff in Miami. What do you think the score is going to be?
I don't know. I haven't done a score prediction for this game yet, man. I still think we give up points. I hope we get to 30. I'm going to say 31-28.
Oh, I don't think my heart can take that. I'm going to go... It's a home game against a team with a losing record of a bunch of injuries who... There's something I can look.
Who blew a lead last time they played at Hard Rock.
Yeah, but also, I feel like the season, they're 6-8. There are only 2 games off. Yeah, the Rams are 8-6. So are the Seahawks, but they're 6-8. You have to imagine that if they lose, that's their season done. So I'm gonna go with a Dolphins win, 24-20.
The Niners also haven't played great football on the road. Do you know what I mean? And we're going to need that to continue. Obviously, the West Coast, East Coast thing, but also like they've not played great. Yeah,
I'm just looking like the Bills, like that game last week, the 12-6 game against the Rams. Like, yeah, they've been really up and down. But again, injuries.
It's so difficult though, isn't it? When you look at the results, you want to say, "Oh, this team beat this team," and that means this one is better than the other. It just doesn't work like that, doesn't it? So the Rams beat them 12-6.
Yep.
12-6. Like, that sounds like the team that we saw when we played the Rams. The Rams struggled. They didn't put up a lot of points. We beat them. It wasn't exactly our greatest performance. But then they play the Bills, and it's the second highest scoring game of the season.
So what's going to be really interesting is, again, it's Deebo Samuel's having such a bad year. George, I feel like if you can stop George Kittle, you should be fine, because Isaac Guerendo's out. So the running back, I don't even know who the running back is at the moment. And I'm looking last week, like Ricky Pearsall, 1 reception. And again, this is it's a completely different game. But there's no one on their offense which makes me go, this might be tough. But the Dolphins might find a way to make it a close game.
Yeah, it does feel like if there's ever a game that a player's going to get going, like a Deebo Samuel, it's going to be against us.
Yeah.
And that is a product of our own making. I'm not trying to sit here and say, hey, look, it's just bad luck. It keeps happening to us, because it happens too often to be bad luck. But we find a way to let it happen.
Yeah. Like Aaron Rodgers turned back to prime Aaron Rodgers. It's like, of course.
That's it.
It's like, of course. Like, it is what it is. You got anything else for this side of bonus time?
Nope, I'm good.
Then we shall see you in a sec. Stay tuned. We have a story from Charlie about his playoff appearance last week. And then Lee and I will do what we do best and just talk about random Dolphin stuff. But thanks for tuning in so far. Make sure you stay with us until after bonus time / overtime. But yeah, we shall see you in, say, 34 seconds. Peace.
Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's showtime. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's showtime. Cause it's your time. Lay it on the line when it's go time. Don't waste no time. Gotta make them lose their mind when it's your time. And it's showtime. Going all out when it's go time. I ain't wasting no time.
So yeah, let me get this graphic up. Do you know what our back is at the moment? It says Charlie Solo. I don't want Charlie Solo. I want that. And then I want that. So it was the first round of the playoffs on Sunday or last weekend. And Charlie, don't know what Charlie's end of season record was, but Charlie was playing Sherrod Steve when this happened. And let me grab it quickly. Share screen, window, share. So, as you can see, it was championship chuck against Sharewise. I don't know what Sharewise team is, but the score finished 277.46, 277.12. And what's amazing is that Cooper Cup gave Charlie 0 points, but Charlie still managed to win. James Conner went off for him, as did Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors. And that basically got the dub, despite the fact that Sherrod Steve had Jalen Hurts and Jahmyr Gibbs have really, really good games. So shout out to Charlie for making it through to the next round of the playoffs. He said he has the average white guy, I believe. So, yep, good luck to everyone in that, and good luck to everyone in the UK one as well. Butley sound like I don't know, like a UK dog. Butley. Apologies for that. Where's I gonna go with this? So my mind's gone blank. Maybe because we normally just talk about the most random things. We was talking about on the phone earlier, apart from graphic stuff. Was one of our last discussions. Let's bring this online. Mind gone blank as well.
No, sorry, I thought you were going to say what it was.
No, I can't remember. That's what I was asking.
I got no idea what we were talking about.
Yeah, it really was. Let's also have a look. What? If not, we'll just have a very, very short bonus time because there's not much need to keep on going. No, I feel like it might be it. We spoke about playoffs, spoke about how the Dolphins are going to beat the...
I've got a question that we can bring online.
Go on then.
That I raised to you the other day. So we hear people saying they want change and they want people fired. Can you give your answer to your audience about what you would do in regards to everyone seems to always want wholesale changes. Everybody needs to go. But I'm of the opinion that then you've never really got an answer as to what the problem was. So last time you fired a head coach, you kept the general manager. And that's why this time I would be more inclined to let the general manager go, because I need to know if it's the players he is signing or the coaching that is happening on the field. And if I get rid of both, I could end up with the same problem and I will have no idea as to which one it is. Because I've changed the equation too much to actually figure it out.
So I've mentioned Sean McDermott's record. I've mentioned Dan Campbell's record. The first 3 seasons as head coaches. Both have been to Dan Campbell hadn't made the playoffs, and Sean McDermott had made the playoffs twice and lost both times. I'm still inclined to keeping the band together, but you would kind of know that everyone is leaving if there's no playoff win the following season. I think, to me, 2 out of your first 3 years as a head coach making the playoffs is a very good achievement. I think my issue is that Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel want to build a team a certain way, and asking them to backpedal on that and do something different kind of goes against what they believe in. And I think that probably leads to more disaster because you're kind of not picking what you know, you're kind of picking what you think you should do. And that could be even worse. So I am not of the belief of making wholesale changes. And if I was going to make a change, then yeah, I'd be making a change of losing the GM as opposed to the head coach. But like I said to you before, the people and social media isn't a real place. The consensus names I'm seeing on social media are assistant GMs in other teams, which is fine, but they don't quite have the experience of making the decisions themselves. They're able to fall back on others if it doesn't go wrong. It's like, hey, I didn't have final say on it. I left it to someone else. And I
also, is that not what you got in Chris Greer? Someone that's been in the organisation forever and worked their way up.
Yeah.
And you're not happy with it. So you just want to replace him with like for like and or at least take the same risk. You're not bringing in a proven GM.
Yeah. And I don't know if I said this to you, but it's like there aren't no, Super Bowl winning GM sitting on their asses at home doing nothing right now because they're in jobs or they've retired. So you're going to someone who has been part of a winning organization, but they weren't the one making the decisions. And if you're worried about Chris Greer, managing a first-time head coach, well, imagine a first-time GM managing a head coach who's in his fourth year. Like that's what then comes to, well, we need more experience. And where are you going to get that from? So it's
a vicious cycle. I'm not sure what the answer is. I don't think either of them are getting fired, but that's, I just think it's an interesting question because, say, everyone always seems to put them together. If one's going, both are obviously going. And I just think that is probably more likely that people don't really know which one to get rid of because they can't answer the exact question that we were just trying to figure out. It's not that straightforward.
Yeah. I think, again, if you because I think I said to you before we went live, someone like the Pittsburgh Steelers GM or assistant GM, and again, the Steelers have a great history of making the right hires in terms of coaches because they always keep the same coach, but their drafts are routinely some of the best drafts, consistent Pro Bowlers, they have more hits than misses. But also, they're a team which are kind of fallen by the wayside in their own division and conference. Yes, they might, they always have a winning season, great. And they make the playoffs more often than not, great. But they're not a team that goes deep in the playoffs, which is basically the Dolphins. So to me, it's just you want someone who can. And again, I know they're not saying this, but if I'm being extremely blunt and pedantic, you're bringing in someone who can build a really good roster to backdoor their way into the playoffs and then lose, which is what we don't want. And also, the Steelers haven't done a very good job of replacing Ben Roethlisberger, have they? They may have found the answer in Russell Wilson, but how often is Russell Wilson going to flame out somewhere else and then be available for so cheap? So, no, I think there probably will be. Depending on what the Dolphins do over the next few weeks, we might not be able to have multiple episodes about potential GMs because basically, if they're not fired on Black Monday, then that conversation's over. There's no point doing a podcast about who can replace Chris Greer because he's not going nowhere. But it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see the names available because, the Paper Planes, they've interviewed Jim Nagy, the guy who runs the Senior Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Has no experience as a GM whatsoever.
Yep.
And again, we said this before, Louis Riddick seems like a great guy. So is Mike Mayock. And look at that, ended up in thing as a Raider. So again, it's easy to sit, behind our keyboards with our microphones talking about, well, I'd go and get this guy. It's like the world doesn't work like that. And we'll know. Unless it happens, we'll never know.
Hey, people look at all big organizations and organizations that are doing well, and they say, hey, let's go get someone from there. There are so many examples of why that is just as fraught with danger as all the other ways of doing it. Look at all the Bill Belichick coaches that have gone on to fail terribly as head coaches themselves, including Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel, Matt Patricia, the other guy whose name completely escapes me.
Can I give you an example of someone? Because I heard someone speak about him the other day.
Go on.
Chris Ballard.
Yep.
So Chris Ballard, Kansas City Chiefs director of player personnel, and then went to the Colts, 2016 or 2017, his first year. And he drafts Quentin Nelson and Shaquille Leonard. It's like great, you've got the two great rookies, and then they hired Frank Reich. But what the Colts achieved since hiring, and Banner was like the guy. You took him from Kansas City. He drafted Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, all of these guys. But Banner, what have you done in Indianapolis? Like I'm still waiting for them to win the Super Bowl, and that's not his fault. But this is what happens when you bring in someone who was, director of player personnel, director of football operations. Okay, they was with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are a really good run organization, but they've also had Andy Reid for how long and all that kind of stuff. And, no offense to the Colts, like Ballard came in and brought in Josh McDaniels, and then McDaniels left, then they brought in Frank Reich, and they're just a nobody team at the moment.
Josh McDaniel didn't even coach there, did he? He just signed the contract and then bailed on them.
Exactly. So
you can even take an example from David Tepper.
Yeah.
Like David Tepper's got plenty of money, was involved with the Steelers organization for a long, long time as a minority owner. Is failing as an owner on his own.
Yeah.
Is making bad decisions and paying a lot of money to back up those bad decisions. It's not a very simple process.
No.
I think the one thing that irks me most when I see it is people who want Stephen Ross to sell the team. That's the one that gets me. I can have a debate with you over coaches or GMs or anything, but I just don't think that anything Stephen Ross does is because he thinks it's bad for the team. He invests money, no questions asked, and not every NFL team owner does that. That's not a given.
I feel like I said this in the group chat the other day. It's like he wants to win so badly, he's tried to cheat to do it. And again, he's not perfect. No owner is. But, you could have an owner like Jerry Jones who is making decisions about quarterbacks and overriding, the head coaches and the GMs, or, a GM like the Bengals who, or even Jerry Jones, because it seems like Jerry Jones isn't going to pay no one anymore. So, listen, Stephen Ross has no issue with signing checks to try and improve the team the best way he can. He made his money not in football, so he has appointed people who he thinks knows the football side. And to be fair, I'd much rather him do that than get it wrong than to try and do everything himself and get it wrong. We see enough owners across multiple sports who, buy a sports team and try and play Football Manager, and it just doesn't work. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
We wouldn't do the same thing.
Listen, if I'm the owner of the Dolphins, I'm involved in every single decision whether I like it or not.
That's what I mean.
Like you can't tell me what to do. I sign your checks.
That's it. It's my team. I do everything. I'll stand on the sidelines. I'll stand in the meeting rooms.
Exactly. So we might know the answer sooner rather than later, but I do think if there's no playoff win by the time the year 2026 rolls around, I think the Dolphins would have cleaned house, and I don't think anyone would be surprised if that happens. So
I still think these guys are all tied together. Once you signed the quarterback, you signed the head coach to an extension, you signed the quarterback to an extension. Like, you might as well ride out this process. Now, it's one bad year that's also been littered with injuries.
And apparently, when McDaniel signed his extension, they gave one, like, people think that Chris Greer got a secret extension because, again, no one knows when the contract runs out. So it runs out very, very soon, or it got extended and it wasn't announced. And I reckon it's the latter. So we'll see. But thank you for joining us. We'll be back most likely Monday, which is Christmas Eve, for the review of the 49ers game. Hopefully it's a dub.
Our playoff chances.
Oh, it's going to be so tiresome. But no, Lee, tell them once again where they can find you.
At 5YardLee, as Kadeem has so kindly put on the screen for me, and the DolFan UK podcast on any of the podcast platforms.
Yes, go check out the DolFan UK podcast. As we said, it is the part of the Dolphins network, so we should be supporting that as much as possible. But until the next time, we shall see you soon. Peace.